Hi everyone, it's time for the fourth installment of my public education and the hidden curriculum series. So I'm going to get started right away. Now that's assuming that you've seen the other videos ahead of time. If you have not seen the other videos, I would suggest that you at least watch the first one in this series so that you understand what this hidden curriculum is all about. Because I'm not really going to get much into that. I'm going to go right into the fourth thing that is taught in public schools, supposedly unintentionally. Again, if you're not really sure what the hidden curriculum is, go back to and watch at least that first video. But anyway, so the fourth thing that is taught in schools, in public schools, through the hidden curriculum is emotional dependency. And just like with a few of the other videos, and again, I'm getting these from John Taylor Gatto's Dumbing Us Down. And since there are only 2 paragraphs in this section, again, Gatto said it better than I ever could. I'm going to read his thoughts to you on this because he himself, he was a teacher for decades, and so he knows firsthand what this is all about and how it's done and what the results are. So I'm going to read his thoughts to you, and then I'm just going to provide some commentary on my own thoughts as I've been thinking about this. Emotional dependency. And again, remember, he is speaking from the point of view of a teacher. The fourth lesson I teach is emotional dependency. By stars and red checks, smiles and frowns, prizes, honors, and disgraces, I teach kids to surrender their will to the predestinated chain of command. Rights may be granted or withheld by any authority without appeal, because rights do not exist inside a school. Not even the right of free speech, as the Supreme Court has ruled, unless school authorities say they do. As a school teacher, I intervene in many personal decisions, issuing a pass for those I deem legitimate and initiating a disciplinary confrontation for behavior that threatens my control. Individuality is constantly trying to assert itself among children and teenagers, so my judgments come thick and fast. Individuality is a contradiction of class theory, a curse to all systems of classification. Here are some common ways in which individuality shows up. Children sneak away for a private moment in the toilet on the pretext of moving their bowels, or they steal a private instant in the hallway on the grounds they need water. I know they don't, but I allow them to deceive me because this conditions them to depend on my favors. Sometimes free will appears right in front of me in pockets of children angry, depressed, or happy about things outside my ken. Rights in such matters cannot be recognized by school teachers. Only privileges that can be withdrawn, hostages to good behavior. So this facet of the hidden curriculum, the emotional dependency that is being taught in the public education system, is something that is really, really prevalent, as all of this is, but this is something that really, as with everything else that we've learned about so far, it's something that just goes straight through into adulthood. It is just a behavior that is so ingrained in a student that yes, these behaviors follow through very often into adulthood, unless hopefully by that point in time they have woken up and have realized what has been going on all this time. But you know, let's think about this emotional dependency. You know, one of the reasons that as a homeschooling parent, I do not give my kids grades or report cards or any of those sorts of things like he described, you know, the smiley faces, the frowny faces, you know, just the little things that they do to keep kids wanting their good favor. One of the reasons that I don't give those things to my kids, grades, is because I don't want my kids to want to learn just to please me. I don't want my kids to learn to learn things just so that they can get a good grade. I want my kids to learn because they are honestly curious and want to know answers. And there is something really, there's such a huge difference between intrinsic rewards and extrinsic rewards. You know, those intrinsic rewards are just what I was talking about. You know, when kids learn things because they understand the value of being educated, because they know that having this knowledge is going to help them at some point in the future. And even if it doesn't directly help them at some point, it is, you know, it's a good thing to be educated. It's a good thing to be knowledgeable about different subject areas. Extrinsic rewards kind of just make it almost reminds me of when you're training a dog. When you are training a dog to sit or roll over or play dead, what very often happens is you will give that dog a treat whenever they do it right. And in all honesty, that is what this whole system of rewards reminds me of. And that is exactly really what John Taylor Gatto was talking about in this book. And this is done on purpose. It is because they do want kids to be emotionally dependent on their teachers. Because when you are emotionally dependent on a teacher, like a dog hoping for a biscuit if they roll over, or even by like a rat in the maze who finally realizes that if they press on one buzzer, they'll get a treat. It's that conditioning. And what that does is it will eventually press the individuality out of kids. They don't want individuality in school. Keeping everything uniform, keeping all of the kids on the same level is how they keep things in order there. So by keeping these kids emotionally dependent on their teachers, what it is basically doing is these kids, they become so focused on just wanting to please their teacher that any thoughts that they have that might not agree with something that is going on in the school, anything that is coming out of their own creative thought is very often suppressed because they are trying so hard to win the rewards of their teachers. And again, that is something that they're doing this because they cannot function as the assembly line learning that they are if they have too many kids who are out there basically being cogs in a wheel. Is that even the right term? I'm not even sure right now. But I'm hoping that you understand what I'm saying. But kids who are emotionally dependent on their teacher are very easier to control, because what will end up happening is they will eventually start to shift their way of thinking to fit that of their teacher. The teacher is presenting information that the powers that be behind the school system want them to present to the kids. So I'm not saying that this is necessarily an attitude that the teacher themselves wants these kids to take. The teacher is passing on information that they have. And then these kids who have grown so emotionally dependent on their teachers, wanting to please them all the time, wanting to be at least on their good side, they are not going to rock the boat. That they're not going to rock the boat. They're not going to express dissenting opinions. They're not going to express any sort of disagreement with the teacher at all. And this is something that even ends up going through into the college years. You know, very often college students will, even if they start out adamantly disagreeing with a teacher, they will eventually, or not all of them, but very often the students will eventually start honing their way of thinking more and more to the professor, because it honestly makes life easier for them, and they like to have that feeling of being well liked by their teacher. And this is something that, as a homeschooling parent, I try really hard to stay away from when it comes to my kids, because if you are going to teach your kids free thought, free thinking, if you are going to teach your kids to have their own opinion, do their own research, having them be emotionally dependent on you, which I should just point this out, that kids are, yes, they're going to be emotionally dependent on their parents. That is something that I think is completely different. Obviously, that's more of a nurturing sort of thing. What is happening in these schools, though, is a little bit more insidious. This is being done to, as John Taylor Gatto said, just beat, more or less, the individuality out of these kids, because they need to keep all the kids moving in the same fashion, and they've all got to be having the same sorts of opinions, the same sorts of thoughts, the same sorts of feelings. If the agenda that the school is pushing, if the agenda that the powers behind the school are pushing is going to be successful, emotional dependency is a huge benefit to have in order to make sure that no one has any genuine thoughts of their own. So anyway, that's all that I have for you today, and I would just want to thank you so much for being a patron. And next month I will bring you, it is intellectual dependency, so very, very similar to emotional dependency, but that's what we're going to be talking about next month. And I hope that you have a great day.